agents took Sean Diddy Combs into custody. He's seen in this video entering the Park Hyatt Hotel in Midtown Manhattan with others when agents from Homeland Security Investigations approach and separate him. They place Combs under arrest and lead him out the front door in handcuffs.
The rumors are that Diddy was running some kind of Epstein-type deal where he was filming everybody, right?
That's the rumors, yeah. I don't know that there's any proof or anything other than that.
Here we go. Let's dive straight into this sensational story that's got everyone talking. Diddy, the man behind some of the biggest names in music, is now at the center of a storm that's shaking up the entire entertainment world. Picture this. After decades of speculation, rumors, and conspiracy theories, the FBI has reopened the case of Biggie Smalls, and guess who's their prime suspect? That's right, Diddy himself. You've heard whispers before, but this time things are different. New details are emerging. Old accusations are resurfacing, and it looks like Diddy's empire, built on glitz, glam, and multi-million-dollar deals, might be on the verge of crumbling.
Why doesn't the government want him to turn himself in? Because then they can't ask for detention. So they go and they arrest him. They arrest a guy who came to New York to turn himself in.
To really understand why this is such a big deal, let's take a trip back in time to when the East Coast-West Coast rivalry was at its peak, a time when two rap legends, Biggie and Tupac, were caught in a feud that ultimately ended in tragedy. But here's the twist that's got everyone on the edge of their seat. All signs are pointing back to Diddy. Some say he's the mastermind who set this entire chain of events in motion, pulling strings from behind the scenes. And now, with Biggie's case being reopened, the stakes couldn't be higher.
The story we're tracking, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs on suicide watch at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center after two judges denied his request for bail. This as a grand jury is expected to hear new testimony from workers very soon.
First off, we need to talk about how this all started. For years, the East Coast and West Coast rap scenes had a tense relationship, but things really exploded when Tupac got involved with Suge Knight and Death Row Records. Before this, Tupac and Biggie were actually close friends, practically inseparable, as many in the industry recall. Tupac used to invite Biggie over to his house in LA. They hung out, wrote music, and had genuine respect for each other. But things took a dark turn after the infamous shooting at Quad Studios in New York in 1994. Tupac was ambushed and shot multiple times, and in the aftermath, he believed Biggie and Diddy were involved, or at least knew who was behind the attack. That's where the seeds of this dangerous rivalry were planted.
When the whole East-West thing started, we were caught off guard, and that broke my man's heart.
This is where Diddy's role becomes extremely questionable. Even though he publicly distanced himself from the violence that would follow, many insiders have long suspected that Diddy played a much bigger role than he let on. Some people close to the case have suggested that Diddy saw an opportunity in the beef between Biggie and Tupac. He had everything to gain by stoking the flames of that rivalry, especially since Biggie's album was blowing up the charts. Keeping the feud alive meant keeping both rappers in the headlines, driving record sales through the roof.
It has taken countless hours, really decades, of work by the men and women of our homicide section to get to where we are today.
And let's not forget that infamous moment at the 1995 Source Awards when Suge Knight took a very public jab at Diddy. In a room full of the biggest names in the industry, Suge famously said, "Any artist out there who wants to be a star and doesn't want the executive producer all in the videos, come to death row." It was a direct shot at Diddy, who was known for inserting himself into his artists' music videos and constantly being in the limelight. The tension between Diddy and Suge Knight escalated from there, and it spilled over into their artists, most notably Biggie and Tupac. By 1996, the beef between Tupac and Biggie had grown into a full-on war, with both rappers releasing tracks that took aim at each other. Tupac's Hit 'Em Up was a brutal diss track aimed straight at Biggie, and it only fueled the rumors that Biggie and Diddy had been involved in Tupac's shooting 2 years earlier. On the flip side, Biggie's Who Shot Ya added more fuel to the fire, making it seem like he was taunting Tupac about the shooting incident. But here's the thing, Biggie and those close to him always maintained that Who Shot Ya had nothing to do with Tupac. It was written long before the Quad Studio shooting. Was it just bad timing, or was it part of a larger plan orchestrated by Diddy to keep the spotlight on his label?
It just hurt because they lie too much, man. It be a lot of this be lies the way they put it together, because they listening to these white boys who wasn't even there.
Biggie's mother, Voletta Wallace, has never been shy about sharing her thoughts on her son's untimely passing. Over the years, she's expressed deep frustration with the Los Angeles Police Department, accusing them of covering up crucial evidence that could have led to Biggie's attacker being brought to justice. She even went as far as to file a wrongful passing lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles, pointing out that the LAPD had knowledge of corrupt officers working for Death Row Records, the same label Tupac was signed to. But one of the most damning claims she's made over the years is that she believes Diddy knows more than he's letting on. In multiple interviews, Voletta has hinted that Diddy had a hand in the events that led to her son's demise, whether directly or indirectly.
This has to be a 100% culture shock. I can't imagine living a lifestyle of the incredibly rich and famous and then going into this very dark, impersonal, cold, austere facility.
Now, this is where things get really interesting. Fast forward to today, and it's not just Voletta Wallace pointing fingers at Diddy anymore. New information has come to light suggesting that Diddy may have been far more involved in both Tupac and Biggie's demises than previously thought. Let's talk about Dwayne "Keefy D" Davis, a name that's resurfaced recently in the ongoing investigations. For those unfamiliar, Keefy D is a former gang member who was involved in the infamous Las Vegas shooting that took Tupac's life in September 1996. Keefy D has given interviews where he claims that Diddy offered him a hefty sum, some reports say as much as $1 million, to take care of both Tupac and Suge Knight. While Keefy D has changed his story multiple times, this is the type of claim that's now being revisited as part of the FBI's renewed focus on Biggie's case.
Right now, Davis is fighting for bail ahead of his trial, which he has pleaded not guilty for.
What's more, retired LAPD Detective Greg Kading, who was tasked with investigating the assassinations of both Biggie and Tupac, has publicly stated that Diddy was involved in orchestrating the hit on Tupac. According to Kading, Diddy's fear of Suge Knight led him to seek out the Crips for protection while he was in LA, and that's where Keefy D came into the picture. Kading claims that Diddy was so scared of what Suge Knight might do to him that he was willing to do anything to protect himself, even if it meant ordering a hit on his rival. If what Kading is saying is true, then the idea that Diddy had nothing to do with the violence surrounding the East Coast-West Coast feud starts to fall apart.
You heard about Diddy law firm breaking ties with him and Miami Beach taking his day away?
Well, all the things that happened to Diddy and he losing friends, companies, cities, city names, city girls.
This leads us to the real kicker. Could it be that Diddy, who built his career on being the mastermind behind Bad Boy Records and shaping the careers of artists like Biggie, is the same person who played a key role in bringing down two of the biggest names in rap? And if that's the case, did he do it all for a financial gain, knowing that a beef between Tupac and Biggie would keep them in the headlines and keep their records flying off the shelves? The more you dig into this story, the more it looks like Diddy might have had more than just a front row seat to the East Coast-West Coast war. He might have been calling the shots all along.
That this is the end of the Diddy story as we know it.
Let's not forget how far Diddy has come since those days. After Biggie's passing, Diddy seemed to be untouchable, dropping hit after hit and expanding his empire far beyond music. But as we've seen time and time again, the past has a way of catching up with even the most powerful figures. And now, with the FBI reopening Biggie's case and Diddy's name being brought up more and more in connection to both Biggie and Tupac's untimely ends, it looks like the facade might finally be crumbling.
Ultimately, how these accusations have to be viewed right now, because we've had, almost 15 years, and the police have not connected Diddy to these accusations. There may be some truth to them, there may not, but right now, there obviously hasn't been enough for the police to make an arrest.
As we speak, there's a lot of speculation swirling around what might come next. The fact that Biggie's case is being reopened is huge. It suggests that there's new evidence or new witness testimony that could finally crack the case wide open. And with Diddy being named as the prime suspect, it seems like the authorities are ready to dive deeper into his involvement in not only Biggie's demise, but also Tupac's. Could this be the beginning of the end for Diddy? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure. This story is far from over. At this point, it's hard to ignore the fact that Diddy has been a central figure in some of the most controversial moments in hip-hop history. Whether it's his role in the East Coast-West Coast rivalry or the many accusations that have been leveled against him over the years, there's always been a sense that Diddy thrives in the chaos. But now, as more people are coming forward and more details are being unearthed, it seems like that chaos is finally catching up with him.
Certainly Mr. Davis will have his opportunity to present whatever evidence he wishes to.
This brings us to the present day, where things have taken a dramatic turn. Diddy, once seen as untouchable, is now facing some of the most serious allegations of his career. Could these new revelations finally bring the truth to light, not just about Biggie's demise, but about everything that's been lurking beneath the surface of Diddy's empire for years? Now, here's where things get really interesting. And if you thought the story couldn't get more intense, think again. What's happening with Diddy right now isn't just about Biggie or Tupac anymore. This is about a much bigger picture, one that reveals a bloody trail stretching far beyond just the East Coast, West Coast, West Coast rivalry. It seems like everywhere you look, there are whispers about Diddy, stories from the past and present that are finally coming to light, and the cracks in his empire are starting to show.
Okay. You know what I'm saying? Then when you look at Pac's situation, it's just an everyday situation. You a rapper, you up, you get shot.
You see, the theory that Diddy orchestrated the infamous feud between Tupac and Biggie isn't as far-fetched as some might think. In fact, this idea is gaining more and more traction, especially with the reopening of Biggie's case. Many believe that Diddy was not just a passive observer, but someone actively involved in setting these tragic events into motion. And if you look closely, there's a pattern here. A pattern of manipulation, ambition, and perhaps even betrayal. Think about it. Diddy was right at the center of it all. He had everything to gain from keeping the conflict alive. At that time, Bad Boy Records was riding high on Biggie's success, and the tension with Tupac only seemed to fuel their rise. Tupac's accusations after the 1994 shooting created a buzz that kept both artists in the spotlight, which, in turn, meant more money, more fame, and more power for the people pulling the strings. And let's not forget that while Diddy was publicly calling for peace, he wasn't exactly staying out of the fight. There's been talk for years that he was quietly fanning the flames, making sure the rivalry kept the media frenzy going. Why? Because controversy sells records and Diddy was a businessman first and foremost? But here's where it gets even more complicated. Over the years, we've seen Diddy's name come up in other serious situations that paint him as someone who's not afraid to get his hands dirty to protect his empire. Remember that lawsuit from his former bodyguard, Gene Deal? Deal has gone on record multiple times claiming that Biggie's passing was no random act of violence. He's adamant that the story everyone knows, the one about it being a drive-by, isn't the full truth. According to Deal, the real story is that Biggie's shooter had been waiting for him all night, patiently lurking until the perfect moment.
Walk us through those final moments, just being in that car, like.
Deal even said in an interview that the target wasn't supposed to be Biggie at all. It was supposed to be Diddy. He claims to have received intel that night warning him of a hit, which he immediately passed on to Diddy, telling him that people were gunning for him. And what happened? Diddy, instead of acting on that warning to protect Biggie, allegedly dismissed it, brushing it off like it was nothing. But the kicker, Diddy's car, the one Deal was in, didn't stop at the red light that Biggie's car did. Deal's version of the events makes it sound like Biggie was left as bait, which raises a lot of uncomfortable questions. Was Diddy willing to let his friend, his biggest star, take the fall to save his own skin? It's a chilling thought, and one that's hard to shake given everything we know now.
Wasn't no drive-by. Car was standing there at the corner. We talk about this shit all the time, bruh.
And that's not all. Deal wasn't just making baseless accusations. He went on to say that he believes Diddy orchestrated the entire situation, knowing full well that Biggie was vulnerable that night. He's even suggested that Diddy was involved in some shady deals with certain figures in the underworld, figures who were known to be dangerous and wouldn't hesitate to take out anyone who got in their way. According to Deal, Diddy was playing both sides, keeping close to the streets while maintaining his polished public image. It's a strategy that may have worked for him in the short term, but now it seems like those old alliances are starting to catch up with him.
So why do you think they tied Diddy name to it?
Because it makes the East Coast and West Coast war works for the authorities and for the news media. Didn't no cops do that. It was an East Coast, West Coast war, and it was a drive-by shooting. It was never no damn drive-by shooting.
Let's not forget that around the same time, Suge Knight, the head of Death Row Records and another central figure in the East Coast-West Coast feud, was making his own moves. The animosity between Suge and Diddy was well documented, and many people in the industry knew that it wasn't just a professional rivalry, it was personal. Suge had his own reasons for wanting Diddy out of the picture, and Diddy, in turn, had plenty of reasons to keep Suge at bay. It's been said that Diddy was terrified of Suge, which is why he aligned himself with certain gangs for protection when he was in LA. But here's where it gets really twisted. There are rumors that Diddy was so desperate to keep himself safe that he might have been willing to make deals that cross lines no one should ever cross. The name Keffe D comes up again and again in these discussions. Keffe D has gone on record, both in interviews and in his book, claiming that Diddy was the one who approached him and his crew about handling a problem in LA. According to Keffe D, Diddy made it clear that he wanted Tupac and Suge taken out, and he was willing to pay big money to make it happen. Now, whether or not you believe Keffe D's version of events, there's no denying that these claims have resurfaced at a time when Diddy's entire legacy is being scrutinized. Could it be that the same man who built Bad Boy Records from the ground up, the same man who gave us some of the most iconic moments in hip-hop, was also behind the downfall of two of the biggest stars the industry has ever seen?
Now for what's trending in true crime, nearly 30 years after the of legendary rapper Tupac Shakur, the man accused of his is now claiming that Sean Diddy Combs once ordered a hit on the rap icon. In a recent court filing, a 2009 interview between police and Dwayne "Keefy D" Davis is making headlines yet again.
What's more, these revelations are coming at a time when Diddy's reputation is already on shaky ground. Over the past few years, we've seen a string of lawsuits and accusations aimed at him, lawsuits that point to a pattern of behavior that goes far beyond the usual behind-the-scenes industry politics. It seems like every few months, another story emerges, another former associate comes forward with claims that Diddy was involved in some shady dealings. From former employees to industry insiders, the stories paint a picture of a man who was willing to do whatever it took to stay on top, even if it meant stepping on the very people who helped him build his empire. Take, for example, the allegations from former artists signed to Bad Boy Records. Over the years, multiple artists have spoken out about how they felt exploited by Diddy and his label. Some have claimed that they were locked into unfair contracts, while others have suggested that Diddy's involvement in their careers was more about using them as pawns in his own game rather than genuinely helping them succeed. There's even talk that Biggie himself was planning to leave Bad Boy Records before his untimely passing, with some reports suggesting that he was on the verge of signing a massive new deal that would have taken him away from Diddy's control. If that's true, it adds another layer to the already complicated story. Did Diddy see Biggie as a threat to his empire? And if so, what lengths would he have gone to in order to keep Biggie from leaving?
You pull out behind him, he blow past the light. We stopped at the light.
And let's not ignore the fact that Diddy's legal troubles are piling up. Recently, there have been high-profile cases filed against him, cases that are chipping away at the image of the charismatic mogul who once seemed untouchable. These lawsuits suggest that the pattern of behavior we've seen over the years wasn't just limited to his early days in the industry. It's something that's persisted throughout his entire career. It's as if the empire Diddy built is starting to crumble under the weight of all these accusations, with more and more people coming forward to share their stories.
Alleged evidence that's been gathered in this case was from those two raids that were conducted on his personal homes in Miami and Los Angeles, and the indictment names the things seized that he allegedly made videos of these sexual performances that have been named freak-offs.
Of course, Diddy has always been a master at controlling his image. For years, he's managed to brush off these accusations, staying in the spotlight and maintaining his status as one of the most influential figures in the entertainment world. But with the FBI now looking into Biggie's case again, and with more people like Keefy D coming forward to speak out, it's becoming harder and harder for Diddy to escape the scrutiny. Could this be the moment when everything finally catches up with him?
P. Diddy has consistently denied any involvement in Tupac's murder. He stated multiple times that he had no connection to the event. And in an interview with Vanity Fair in 2017, he said, "I never had anything to do with any of the violence that was going on during that time."
What's happening now isn't just about what went down in the 90s. It's about a much larger pattern that stretches across decades, with new allegations coming to light that suggest Diddy's actions weren't just limited to the East Coast-West Coast feud. The FBI's renewed interest in the Biggie case, combined with these ongoing lawsuits, paints a picture of a man who's been walking a very fine line for years. And now it looks like that line is finally starting to blur.
Now, so what is next? Is he going to be in jail in this facility until the trial begins? Is there a chance he could, get moved earlier than that?
As of this moment, as of this hour, as of today, yes. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, they're going to be appealing this thing next to the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to overturn the judge's order here to try and get him actually released to his mansion.
It's almost poetic in a way. Diddy built his entire empire on being the man behind the curtain, the one pulling all the strings, making all the moves that kept Bad Boy Records at the top. But now, those same moves might be the very thing that brings it all crashing down. The allegations are piling up, the lawsuits are getting harder to ignore, and the public is starting to see Diddy in a different light.
I think in federal court and for these charges, they would say it's routine. But in the public realm, this is very significant, just from who we associate Diddy being and everything we've seen him do over the decades. Like you said, this is quite the downfall to go from. We saw the mansions back in March that were raided by the feds. So to go from living in those mansions to being in a jail cell right now.
The question now is, what happens next? With the FBI back in the picture and with so many people coming forward to share their stories, it's clear that this is far from over. Will Diddy finally be held accountable for the role he allegedly played in Biggie's case, or will he find a way to escape the consequences once again? And if he does manage to come out of this unscathed, what does that mean for the people who've been fighting for justice all these years? People like Voletta Wallace, who spent decades trying to get to the truth about her son's passings.
They got to come up with some kind of evidence And they gotta have Keefe D say and point to some kind of evidence, which I don't think he could, that Diddy put out the hit on Tupac. Yeah, they gonna press him.
The stakes are higher than ever, and it feels like we're on the verge of something big. This isn't just another celebrity scandal. This is about the very foundation of one of the most powerful empires in the entertainment industry. And as more details continue to emerge, one thing's for sure. We're all watching, waiting to see how the story ends. So, what do you guys think? Could Diddy really have been behind the chaos that claimed the lives of two of hip-hop's biggest icons? Or is this just another wild conspiracy theory that's spiraling out of control? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think there's more to this story that we don't know yet? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.